Ice skating at midnight. Deep sleep story. The last skaters left the Riverside Community Ice Rink at 10 o'clock, just as they did every night. Sam Cartwright stood by the entrance gate, hands tucked into the pockets of a heavy work coat, watching as the final family made their way toward the parking lot. Two kids, maybe 7 and 9 years old, still wore their rental skates, clomping across the rubber mats like awkward baby deer. Their mother carried their shoes in a canvas bag slung over one shoulder. "Night, Sam," the mother called, waving. "Night, folks," Sam called back. "Drive safe." The kids waved too, mittened hands flapping in the cold air, and then they were gone, disappearing into the rows of parked cars. Sam heard the distant sound of car doors closing, an engine starting, and then the crunch of tires on the gravel access road. And then silence. Well, not quite silence. There was never true silence at the rink, not really. There was the hum of the refrigeration system beneath the ice, a low mechanical pulse that Sam had long ago stopped consciously hearing. There was the slight creak of the wooden boards that surrounded the rink, expanding and contracting with the temperature. There was the wind, when it blew, rustling through the bare branches of the oak trees that lined the perimeter. But it was a different kind of sound than the daytime noise. During operating hours, the rink was a symphony of chaos. Children shrieking with laughter, teenagers racing each other, the clatter of skate blades on ice, the scrape and spray of sudden stops, the thud of bodies hitting the boards, the tinny music from the sound system playing, top 40 hits that Sam had heard so many times he could sing them in his sleep. Now, though, the rink belonged to Sam alone. Sam walked over to the control panel near the warming hut and began flipping switches. The overhead floodlights clicked off one by one, each accompanied by a metallic clunk that echoed across the empty space. The rink transformed with each light that went dark. Where moments ago everything had been bright and exposed, now shadows pooled in the corners. The ice, which had been white and glaring under the floods, now took on a softer quality, illuminated only by the security lights mounted on tall poles at each corner of the rink and by the moon, which hung full and bright in the clear December sky. Sam paused at the edge of the ice and looked out across it. The surface was rough now, carved up by hours of use. There were grooves and scrapes, patches where snow had been kicked up by stopping skaters, thin lines crisscrossing like 1,000 tiny roads going nowhere in particular. It looked tired. It looked like it needed care, and that was Sam's favorite part of the job. Sam had been the caretaker of the Riverside Community Ice Rink for 15 years. That was long enough to know every inch of the place, every quirk of the refrigeration system, every board that needed an extra nail, every spot where the ice tended to be a little thinner and needed extra attention. Long enough to have seen thousands of people learn to skate, fall, get back up, and eventually glide with something approaching grace. Long enough to have resurfaced the ice more times than could possibly be counted, and Sam still loved it. There was something deeply satisfying about this work, about taking something worn and damaged and making it smooth and new again. It was a small act of restoration that happened every single night, a reset button for the world. Tomorrow, the ice would be perfect again. Tomorrow, families would arrive and step out onto a flawless surface, and they would never know how rough it had been the night before. They would just know that it was good now, that it was ready for them. But first, Sam had work to do. Sam turned away from the ice and walked toward the storage shed at the far end of the warming hut. The cold was sharp tonight, the kind of cold that made your nostrils stick together when you inhaled and turned your breath into thick clouds of vapor. Sam's cheeks tingled with it, and the tips of ears began to ache where they stuck out from beneath the knit cap. But inside the heavy work coat, inside the thermal layers and the fleece-lined interior, Sam was warm. It was a good feeling, that contrast. The cold keeping you alert, the warmth keeping you comfortable, balanced. Sam unlocked the storage shed. The key always stuck a little in the cold, requiring a wiggle and some patience, and pulled open the heavy door. Inside, illuminated by a single bare bulb, sat Betsy. Betsy was a Zamboni, or more accurately, an ice resurfacing machine. Sam knew that Zamboni was technically a brand name, like Kleenex or Band-Aid, but nobody called it an ice resurfacing machine. It was a Zamboni. And this particular Zamboni was named Betsy, a name given to her by the caretaker who had worked here before Sam. A name that had stuck because it fit. She was old, a little temperamental, prone to needing coaxing on particularly cold nights, but reliable when treated with respect. Sam had spent countless hours on Betsy, learning her quirks, understanding her rhythms. The way she pulled slightly to the left if you weren't careful. The way the engine coughed twice before catching on cold starts. The exact amount of water pressure needed to get the perfect spread. These were things you learned by doing, by paying attention, by caring. Sam walked around Betsy, doing the nightly check. Fluid levels looked good. The blade underneath, the part that shaved off the top layer of rough ice, was still sharp enough. The water tank was full. Everything was ready. From the shelf beside the door, Sam grabbed a thermos of hot chocolate, prepared earlier in the warming hut kitchen. The thermos was dented and scratched, a veteran of many cold nights, but it kept things hot for hours. Sam tucked it into the cup holder welded onto Betsy's frame, then grabbed the heavy work gloves from the same shelf. The gloves were insulated, waterproof, the kind that made your hands look twice their normal size but kept every finger warm even in sub-zero temperatures. Sam climbed up onto Betsy's seat, settled in, and pulled the gloves on. The seat was cold even through the layers of clothing, and Sam shifted to find a comfortable position. The keys hung from the ignition on a loop of metal chain. Sam turned them. The engine coughed again, and then caught, rumbling to life with a sound that Sam found deeply comforting. It was a low, steady sound, not loud enough to be obtrusive, but substantial enough to feel. You could feel it through the seat, through the steering wheel, a gentle vibration that said the machine was awake and ready to work. Sam let Betsy warm up for a minute, just sitting there in the shed, looking out at the ice through the open door. The moon was so bright tonight that it cast shadows. The oak trees along the perimeter stood like silent witnesses, their bare branches reaching up toward the stars. The air smelled like winter, like cold and snow and something clean and sharp that Sam could never quite name. This was the meditation. This was the moment before the work began, the moment of anticipation and preparation. Sam breathed it in, let it fill the lungs, let it settle into the bones. Then Sam put Betsy in gear and rolled slowly out of the shed. The transition from the shed to the ice was something Sam had done thousands of times, but it still required attention. You had to approach the ice at the right angle, ease onto it gently. Make sure the machine was balanced before you started really moving. Betsy's wide tracks gripped the ice, and Sam steered toward the edge of the rink. lining up parallel to the boards. Sam took one more breath, flipped the switch to lower the blade and activate the water flow, and began the first lap. The change was immediate. The blade beneath Betsy scraped against the ice, shaving off the rough top layer with a sound like 1,000 tiny knives cutting paper. The shaved ice was collected into Betsy's hopper, and simultaneously, hot water sprayed out from the back, spreading across the ice in a thin, even sheet. The water was hot enough that steam rose from it in ghostly wisps, but the ice beneath was so cold that the water began freezing almost immediately, turning from liquid to solid in the space of seconds. Sam steered carefully, keeping Betsy moving at a slow, steady pace. This wasn't work you could rush. Too fast and the water wouldn't spread evenly. Too slow and the blade would dig in too deep, leaving grooves. It required attention and feel, the kind of knowledge that lived in your hands and your body, rather than your conscious mind. The sound was hypnotic. The low hum of the engine formed the bass note, constant and steady. On top of that was the scraping of the blade, a rhythmic she-dash rose and fell slightly depending on how rough the ice was. And then there was the water, the spray and hiss of it hitting the cold surface. And beneath that, if you listened carefully, you could hear the subtle crackle of it beginning to freeze. Sam completed the first lap, coming back around to where the pass had started. Already behind Betsy, the ice looked different. Where there had been roughness, now there was a fresh layer, still glistening wet, but already beginning to harden into smoothness. It wasn't perfect yet. It took several passes to get it truly perfect, but it was better. It was on its way. The cold wind touched Sam's face, and Sam turned up the collar of the coat a little higher. The motion brought a whiff of the coat's smell, a mix of machine oil, ice, and the faint scent of the fabric softener used in washing. It was the smell of this work, the smell of these nights, and Sam found it comforting in the way that familiar smells always are. Sam continued the second lap, following the same path, laying down another thin layer of water over the first. With each pass, the ice became smoother, the transformation more complete. The tracks from Betsy's first pass were erased by the second. The second pass would be smoothed by the third. It was a process of gradual perfection, of patient attention to detail. The moon tracked slowly across the sky. The stars wheeled overhead, bright and cold and impossibly distant. And Sam drove Betsy around and around the rink, caught in the rhythm of it, the meditative repetition. Left turn at the corner, straight along the boards. Right turn at the next corner, straight again. The steering wheel was cold even through the gloves, but Sam's grip was sure and steady. On the third lap, Sam noticed something odd. There was something in the center of the ice, something that hadn't been there before, or at least hadn't been visible in the dim light. Sam squinted, trying to make it out. It was dark against the ice, and roughly the size of a football. As Sam came around the curve and the angle changed, the moonlight caught it differently, and Sam could suddenly see what it was. A duck. A mallard duck, to be specific, sitting calmly in the middle of the ice rink as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sam slowed Betsy to a stop and stared. The duck stared back. Even from this distance, Sam could see the distinctive green head, the brown body, the orange feet tucked up beneath it. The duck looked comfortable. It looked like it had no intention of going anywhere. "You've got to be kidding me," Sam said aloud. The duck did not respond. Sam put Betsy in neutral and climbed down from the seat. Approaching a duck on an ice rink at midnight was not something covered in the Caretaker training manual, but Sam figured the basic principle had to be the same as shooing any bird. Approach slowly, make yourself look big, encourage it to fly away. Sam walked across the fresh ice. It was slippery, but Sam had good boots with traction and got within about 15 feet of the duck before stopping. The duck watched Sam's approach with what could only be described as casual interest. "Hey there, buddy," Sam said, keeping the voice calm and low. "You can't be here. This is an ice rink, not a pond." The duck tilted its head as if considering this information. "I need you to move along," Sam continued. "I've got work to do, and you're right in the middle of my pattern." The duck preened one wing, running its bill through the feathers with meticulous care. Sam tried waving both arms. "Shoo, go on, shoo." The duck looked up from its preening, quacked once a single, perfunctory quack that somehow managed to convey total indifference, and went back to arranging its feathers. Sam stood there, arms still raised, and had to laugh. Here Sam was a grown adult in the middle of the night, trying to negotiate with a waterfowl. The absurdity of the situation was not lost. The duck had probably been flying over, seen the ice gleaming in the moonlight, and thought it looked like a perfectly good pond. From the air, it probably did. How was a duck supposed to know that this was a community recreation facility with posted hours and regulations? "Okay," Sam said, lowering the arms. "Let's try a different approach." Sam walked back to Betsy and rummaged in the small storage compartment where various supplies were kept. There was a granola bar in there, left over from an earlier break. Sam unwrapped it, broke off a small piece, and walked back toward the duck, stopping about 20 feet away this time. "How about this?" Sam said, tossing the piece of granola bar toward the edge of the rink, away from the center. "You want a snack? Go get the snack." The granola bar piece skittered across the ice and came to rest near the boards. The duck watched it go. The duck looked at Sam. The duck looked back at the granola bar. The duck did not move. "Not a granola fan?" Sam asked. "Fair enough." Sam walked closer, slowly, thinking that maybe if Sam just got near enough, the duck's natural wariness would kick in, and it would take off. But the duck seemed to have no natural wariness whatsoever. When Sam got within 10 feet, the duck simply waddled, actually waddled, its orange feet slapping against the ice about 3 feet to the left, and settled down again. Sam stopped and sighed, breath clouding in the cold air. This was ridiculous. This was also somehow perfectly fitting for the kind of night it had been. Nothing ever went exactly according to plan. There was always something unexpected, something that required patience and adaptation. "All right," Sam said, more to the night than to the duck. "I can work around you. But if you change your mind and decide to fly off, I won't be offended." Sam walked back to Betsy, climbed up into the seat, and resumed the resurfacing. When the path came near the duck, Sam steered carefully around it, leaving a circle of unresurfaced ice, about 6 feet in diameter, around where the duck sat. The duck watched Betsy pass, unperturbed. Sam completed the 3rd lap and started the 4th, still steering around the duck. This was fine. Sam had worked around obstacles before: fallen hockey sticks, forgotten water bottles, once even a teddy bear that had somehow ended up in the middle of the ice. A duck was just another obstacle. A living, breathing, slightly defiant obstacle, but an obstacle nonetheless. On the fifth lap, Sam came around the far turn and saw that the duck was standing up, stretching its wings. Sam slowed down, watching. The duck flapped its wings a few times, waddled forward a couple of steps, and then, with what seemed like very little effort, lifted into the air. It didn't go far. It flew in a lazy circle around the rink, about 20 feet off the ice, and Sam followed its path with eyes and a smile. The duck completed its circle, gained a little altitude, and then flew off toward the river, disappearing beyond the oak trees. "Thank you," Sam called after it. "Have a good night." The rink was empty again. Well, empty except for Sam and Betsy and the moon and the stars and the cold December air. Sam resumed the normal pattern, now able to resurface the center section that had been the duck's temporary territory. With each pass, the ice became smoother, more uniform, more perfect. By the 10th lap, Sam could barely see any imperfections. The surface gleamed in the moonlight, wet and glassy, already hardening as the water froze solid. By the 12th lap, it was perfect. Not a scratch, not a groove, not a rough patch anywhere. Just smooth, flawless ice stretching from one end of the rink to the other. Sam completed one final pass, then steered Betsy back toward the shed. The engine rumbled contentedly as Sam parked it in its spot, flipped off the switches in the proper order, and climbed down. The work gloves went back on their shelf. The thermos, still full of hot chocolate that Sam hadn't had time to drink, went back as well. Sam gave Betsy a pat on her metal frame, a small gesture of gratitude, and locked up the shed. But Sam wasn't done yet. There was one more part of the nightly ritual, the part that Sam looked forward to all evening. Sam walked to the warming hut and opened the locker that had "staff" written on it in faded marker. Inside hung a parka, a couple of extra scarves, a first aid kit, and on the bottom shelf, a pair of ice skates. These were Sam's personal skates, not the rental skates that the public used. These skates were old, broken in, the leather soft and molded to the shape of Sam's feet after years of use. The blades were well maintained, sharpened regularly, cared for with the same attention Sam gave to everything else at the rink. Sam sat down on the bench and pulled off the work boots, replacing them with the skates. The lacing was a ritual in itself. Start at the toe, work up toward the ankle, pulling each section tight, but not too tight, knowing exactly how much tension to put on each lace. The familiar pressure around the feet, the way the boot hugged the ankle, the slight flex of the blade against the floor, all of it was as familiar as breathing. Sam stood, testing the feel, and walked on the rubber mat toward the ice. The blades clicked against the mat with each step, a sound that always made Sam smile. At the edge of the ice, Sam paused, one hand on the boards, and looked out at the perfect surface. It was beautiful. It was a shame, almost, to be the first to mark it, to scratch lines across that flawless expanse. But that was the whole point, wasn't it? The ice was meant to be skated on. Perfection wasn't meant to be preserved. It was meant to be used, experienced, lived in. Sam stepped onto the ice. The first sensation was the slight scrape of the blade finding its grip. The edge caught and Sam pushed off with the right foot, gliding forward on the left. Then the left foot came down, and Sam pushed with that, gliding on the right. And suddenly Sam was moving across the ice, smooth and steady, the cold air rushing past. The sound of the blades on fresh ice was unlike anything else. It was a crisp, clean sound, a she-dash that was both sharp and soft at the same time. Each stroke made its mark, a thin line carved into the perfect surface, and each line was a record of motion, of balance, of the blade's edge cutting through. Sam skated toward the center of the rink, then began a slow, wide circle. There was no hurry, no destination. This wasn't about speed or tricks or showing off. This was about the simple act of skating, the pure experience of gliding across ice under the moon. Left foot push, right foot glide, right foot push, left foot glide. The rhythm was automatic, built into muscle memory from years of practice. Sam's body knew what to do without conscious thought. The ankles flexed, the knees bent slightly, the core engaged to maintain balance. The arms swung gently to counterbalance each stroke. The moon cast Sam's shadow on the ice, a dark shape that moved in perfect synchronization. Sam followed the shadow for a while, then looked up at the stars instead. They were brilliant tonight, thousands of them, more than you could ever count. They didn't care about the ice rink or the dock or the work that needed doing. They just shone, distant and constant and beautiful. Sam fell into the flow of it, the meditative state that came when body and mind and action aligned perfectly. Thoughts drifted in and out like clouds across a sky. Memories surfaced, learning to skate as a child, holding a parent's hand, falling dozens of times before finally finding balance. The first time skating backward, the strange sensation of not being able to see where you were going, but trusting that your body knew. Teaching others to skate, watching their faces light up when they managed their first glide without holding on. But mostly, there were no thoughts at all, just the motion, just the sound of the blades, just a cold air and the moonlight and the perfect ice. Sam's breathing fell into rhythm with the skating. Inhale on the left stroke, exhale on the right. The body was working, muscles engaged, but it didn't feel like work. It felt effortless, like flying, like the body was doing what it was designed to do. The rink wasn't large, maybe 80 feet by 40, but when you were skating alone, when you had the whole surface to yourself, it felt infinite. Sam made wide loops, figure eights, lazy spirals, sometimes skating forward, sometimes transitioning smoothly into skating backward, sometimes just gliding with both feet parallel, seeing how far momentum alone would carry the body. The cold had stopped being something Sam noticed. It was just part of the environment now, part of the experience. The tips of the ears might be numb, and the cheeks were probably red, but inside the coat, the body was warm from the exertion of skating. Balanced, just like the ice needed to be balanced between too hard and too soft. The body needed to be balanced between too cold and too hot. Sam thought about balance, about what it meant. People often talked about balance as if it were a static thing, as if you could find it, and then hold still, and everything would be fine. But that wasn't how balance worked. You couldn't stand perfectly still on ice skates. The moment you stopped moving, you started to fall. Balance was dynamic. It required constant, tiny adjustments, constant small corrections, constant forward motion. Balance isn't about standing still, Sam said aloud, the words forming clouds in the cold air. It's about moving forward without falling. The truth of it settled into Sam's chest, not as a revelation, but as a recognition of something already known, but not yet articulated. Life was like skating. You couldn't freeze in place. and expect to stay upright. You had to keep moving, keep adjusting, keep finding your center even as the world shifted beneath you. But if you did that, if you kept your knees bent and your weight centered and your movements fluid, you could glide. You could find grace in motion. Sam smiled and pushed harder, picking up a little speed, feeling the wind in the face and the ice rushing beneath. This was joy. This was what it felt like to be alive and moving and balanced. Sam skated a few more long, swooping circles, crossing the rink at different angles, leaving a complex pattern of lines that overlaid each other, like a drawing made by someone who didn't know what they were creating, but trusted the process anyway. The moon watched, the stars watched, and Sam skated. Eventually, Sam couldn't have said how long it had been. Time moved differently in these moments. Sam began to slow down. The pushes became gentler, the glides longer, until finally Sam was just coasting, feet parallel, arms out slightly for balance, letting momentum carry the body across the ice until it gradually, inevitably, came to a stop. Sam stood there in the center of the rink, breathing slightly harder than normal, feeling the pleasant tiredness in the legs and the satisfaction in the chest. The ice was no longer perfect. It was covered now with lines and curves, with the record of Sam's skating, with proof that it had been used and enjoyed. And that was good. That was exactly as it should be. Sam skated slowly to the edge of the rink, stepped off onto the rubber mat, and sat down on the bench to unlace the skates. The fingers were a little stiff from the cold, and the laces took some working. But eventually they came free, and the skates came off, and the work boots went back on. Sam stood, picked up the skates, and carried them back to the locker in the warming hut. They went back on the bottom shelf, exactly where they belonged. Sam closed the locker, turned off the light, and locked the warming hut door. One last look at the rink. Tomorrow, well, later today, really, since it was well past midnight now, the families would return. Children would wobble across the ice, teenagers would race each other, adults would hold hands and skate slowly around the perimeter. They would carve up the surface again, and tomorrow night Sam would resurface it again, and the cycle would continue. But tonight the ice was perfect, and tonight Sam had skated alone under the moon, and that was enough. Sam walked to the parking lot where an old but reliable car sat waiting. The car started on the first try, the heater coming to life and beginning to blow warm air into the cold interior. Sam sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, letting the car warm up, looking back at the rink through the windshield. The moon hung above it, bright and round and beautiful. The ice gleamed. Everything was quiet and still and peaceful. Sam put the car in gear and drove home through the empty streets of the sleeping town. The houses were dark, everyone tucked into their beds, the world at rest. The traffic lights blinked yellow at the intersections. A cat dashed across the road, eyes reflecting green in the headlights for a moment before disappearing into the shadows. Home was a small house on a quiet street. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. Sam parked in the driveway, turned off the car, and sat for a moment in the sudden silence. The warmth from the heater was already beginning to fade. Time to go inside. Sam unlocked the front door and stepped into the familiar space. The house was dark and quiet, but it held warmth, both literal and metaphorical. Sam hung the coat on its hook, pulled off the boots and left them on the mat, and padded in socked feet to the bedroom. The bed looked inviting, blankets piled high, pillows arranged just right. Sam had opened the bedroom window a crack before leaving for work, and cold air had slipped in, making the room chilly. But that was perfect. Sam loved sleeping in a cold room under warm blankets, loved that feeling of being cocooned in warmth while the air around you was crisp. Sam changed into pajamas, brushed teeth, went through the familiar motions of preparing for sleep, and then finally slipped under the covers. The sheets were cold at first, but body heat quickly warmed them. Sam pulled the blankets up to the chin and lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the pleasant tiredness in the muscles and the satisfaction of a job well done settling into the bones. Outside, the wind picked up slightly, rustling through the bare branches of the tree in the front yard. The sound was soothing, a natural music that required nothing from Sam except to listen. Sam's mind drifted back to the rink, to the feel of the ice beneath the skate blades, to the rhythm of the motion, to the perfect balance found in constant forward movement. The memory was still vivid in the body, the muscles remembering what it felt like to glide. Balance isn't about standing still, Sam thought again. It's about moving forward without falling. And with that thought, with the memory of moonlight on ice, and the sound of blades carving fresh lines, and the feeling of perfect balance found in motion, Sam's eyes drifted closed. Sleep came easily, peacefully, inevitably, like gliding across ice until momentum carries you to rest. Outside, the moon continued its track across the sky. The stars wheeled overhead. The world turned on its axis, moving forward, always forward, finding its balance in motion. And Sam slept deep and dreamless and content, ready to wake tomorrow and do it all again. If this story helped guide you to a place of peace, if it gave you a moment of calm in the quiet hours, please consider showing your support with a like and subscribe to Deep Sleep Stories Hub for more gentle journeys into restful sleep. May your dreams be as smooth as fresh ice, and may you always find your balance in the motion of life. Good night and sleep well.